Hey guys, welcome back to Farmstead Forge. So I got to do a quick video this week, and I thought I would do a walk around of my 3 different gas forges, just because I've had some questions on them after forge welding videos. So I will go through my 3 different styles, what I like about them, what I don't like them, and maybe it'll help you make a decision on buying one someday. My first one is in my mobile shop or my shoe-in rig. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a card to it. And I run all NC Tool Co. forges. I've been around several different forges through shoe-in school, different brands. And NCs are just the ones that I really like the most. There may be some better professional grade forges out there, I don't know, but I just really liked how simple they were, easy to change liners on. This is a 2-burner Whisper Mama, I believe. I've had this forge for over 10 years. I used to put quite a few liners in it, and I go into that on my mobile shop video. But since I got this new rig, I haven't had that trouble. I've had this forge on 3 different shoeing rigs, and because I was changing liners a lot, I cut the back out of this one just because these have been warped so bad, they're kind of a pain. And I was changing liners about once a year, and I just wanted to make life easier. And my mentor had done this, so I did that. If you're not changing liners out very often, that's something you don't need to do. But it doesn't really seem to affect the integrity of it. I do forge weld in this one a ton, this little 2-burner. A lot of bar shoes, and then I have jump welded some frog plates in shoes and stuff. So some drop the tongs, welding and stuff. Of course, that's out in the wind on the prairie, and it seems to do fine. I think they recommend they run these at 6 to 15 PSI. This one I run at 10 just because I'm out on the prairie in the wind. A 30, 40 mile an hour wind around here is a common wind. I mean, we get way worse and way less, obviously, but so I gotta have a little more pressure. My shop forge, I run way into that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So since I am out on the prairie a lot, and this has 2 opened-in ports, I made this little, what I call the Heat Saver 3000. And so if I can't park my pickup facing the wind, or it's boiling around, whatever, and I'm having trouble keeping my forge lit, I can put this in an end just to save me some heat and also keep the wind from blowing it out. There's been some times I had to weld bar shoes and it was below zero or something Fahrenheit, working at a vet clinic or something, and it was nice to just plug that off and have a little more heat. The one thing that I will recommend if you're doing any kind of forge welding in these is to get a welding brick, welding plate, whatever you want to call it, that goes in the bottom, and it will really save the life of your liner. So my nephew has one of these 2-burners. He was very lucky. He called me up. His neighbor was selling it for 50 bucks. Is that a good deal? I was like, oh my God, jump on it. But he does a lot of Damascus knives and stuff, does a lot of welding, and he didn't have one of these welding plates in, and it has really ate the bottom of his forge out to where he's ready for a new liner. So just having a welding plate in there saves a ton. Also, I will say a lot of times these things show up in the mail broken half. Don't bother chasing the new one down. They crack over time anyways. Just throw them in and use them. So in the over 10 years I've used this, I have been using it basically daily. Well, when I first started shooting, I was shooting 6 days a week. Then I was down to 4 days a week. So 4 days a week, I would go through a 40-pound propane tank in about 3 weeks to the dot. I would write it down on my schedule when I put a new tank in, and I'd write it down when I would be due, and within a day either side of that, I was running out. So they're pretty efficient little forge. When I'm shoeing, I would measure my foot for my stock length. I'd come in here, I'd crack it at a quarter of a crack. I'd crack it at a quarter of a crack. I would go work on my other foot. By the time I came back, my steel was ready to work. A lot of times I do just run these forges on 1/4 of a crank unless I'm needing some heat built to it, but you don't have to run them full blast all the time. If you're kind of letting something slowly heat up, you can just barely crack them. The only parts that I have ever replaced on this forge, I put a new valve in and a new striker. And these strikers are just a barbecue striker. Just a word of warning, if you're out in the rain and it's cold and you're wet and they're wet, you reach over and strike it. If you make enough contact, it'll light you up and not the forge. This is the most recent forge I bought, and this is an NC Tool Co. 3-burner lowboy. This forge for shoeing horses, I had this in my barn set up. For shoeing horses, it's great. I mean, especially if you're doing some heavier footed horses and you need a little more room, it's a little nicer than the 2-burner. If you don't have a shoeing rig, then you're not shoeing horses that are big footed, you're just shoeing quarter horses. I would rather have the 2-burner all day long. That's probably my favorite little forge. This thing gets hotter than HE double hockey sticks though. And I think I'm running this one at about 7 pounds, but because it's such a low profile forge, it really heats up fast and it heats up nice. So a lot of my wintertime shoeing, I was doing in the barn, and I was melting on a lot of boreum and stuff, shoeing in the cold. So I really like the 3-burner for that. It just really heated things up nicely. The thing I did not like about this forge, and this must be something new that NC Tool Co. did that my other 2 forges they didn't have, is this cross brace right here. It's a piece of angle iron. It's stood up, and so your forge door at the time would rest like that on there. And I'm not sure why they did that, but a lot of times it'd be sitting there and it'd just fall down like that. Scare the crap out of me, scare my horses, whatever. But the final straw for me was I had my horseshoe and I would just chuck them in like that while it was still hot. Not while it was going, just while it was hot. Well, it was enough of a vibration that door slammed down on the top of my hand. And it was not like a bad burn, but it singed my hair off and it ticked me off. So I went and got my flapper disc on my grinder and I dressed that puppy up for business. So now it just sits straight up and down. I'm not sure why they had them like that, but I did not like it. This vise is on this stand for my shop, but this tail piece was one I forge welded in my shop forge, which we'll go check on that in just a minute. And so this is my shop forge. You guys have probably seen this and seen me do quite a bit of forge welding and stuff. This is the NC Tool Co. I think it's the Big Daddy. What I like about this one is it does have a pretty deep box on it. That's about 13 wide by 10 deep by about 6 tall. And I see where NC Tool Co. they even have up to a 12-burner forge. This forge, you're probably looking at about $1,100, and they go clear up to like $4,000. But just a pretty nice common forge size just to have in the shop. This stand I made for it was a quickie, but it's kind of nice. You can extend out for something long. I need to do it on rollers with the tank attached so I can move it around more. And then my front, I have a thing that'll pull up and pin for something if I want to leave my door open. And this one I have turned down pretty low. I actually have it at like 4 pounds. They say 6 to 15, but this thing gets flat hot. At 4 pounds, it takes a little while to heat the box up, but once the box is hot, I forge weld all day long in it. Of course, it's in a little insulated shop, so not a lot of heat's going out. I had one, like an orifice one time, got plugged up and was only spitting fire out of 2 burners. I'm not really sure how that happened. Something must have got in the line at one time, maybe from the factory, who knows. It wasn't long after I had it. Cleaned that out and I've never had an issue. Now, Randy Richard in the shop has a 4-burner NC Tool Co. and he has a really slick setup. So it's a 4-burner, but he has it on 2 valves, so he can either run 4 burners or just 2 burners. probably saves him huge on propane. And so I was actually messaging him asking if he'd forge welded, and he was showing me some cool stuff he'd forge welded in his. And he said he just did it on 2 burners. So just goes to show you, you know, you don't have to have a ton of heat, just a little bit of time, and you can get anything welded you want. There's a lot of times this forge too, just everyday forging, is once my box heats up, I will do that same thing, quarter crank on the valve, and it maintains its heat just fine while I'm working 2 pieces of steel. 1 burner forges, I've been around those quite a bit in shoeing school and stuff, just shoeing horses out of them. I never have welded out of a 1 burner, but as far as just blacksmithing, they're great, and I'm sure you could weld in them just fine. Guys, the Easter this weekend, I didn't have time to do a big day of forging, but I thought I'd at least go around and show you my forges. If you have any questions, you can drop them down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to keep it simple, and I will catch you in the next one.